Minnesota's $70 million fraud exposes how Democrats built a system designed to be robbed. Over 70 people have been charged in Minnesota's Feeding Our Future fraud case as officials feared racism accusations more than protecting taxpayer money. For years, Democrats assured us that expanding government programs was an act of moral heroism, that the only thing standing between America and utopia was more taxpayer money flowing through more community-based nonprofits embracing equity-centered missions. Then Minnesota happened, exposing a truth the radical left will never admit. The system isn't broken. This is exactly how it's designed to work. Over 70 people connected to the Minnesota nonprofit Feeding Our Future face federal charges in the country's largest COVID pandemic fraud scandal. It was primarily Somali American defendants who allegedly stole funds meant for low-income children by submitting falsified invoices, fake meal counts, and fabricated rosters. The organizations billed the government for tens of millions of unserved meals, using the stolen money for luxury cars, beachfront property, and homes. It's jaw-dropping, but it's not surprising. And it happened because Democrats built a system practically engineered for abuse by the nonprofit industrial complex. Here are the 5 reasons this fraud was so easy to commit, and why the same conditions exist in states across the country. 1. Democrats built programs with almost no guardrails by design. It's easy to blame COVID chaos for what unfolded in Minnesota, but the fraud wasn't subtle. COVID-19 simply provided the political cover to dump hundreds of millions of dollars onto a broken, low-oversight system. According to DOJ indictments, the perpetrators' lies were ludicrous. One defendant, Abdirashid Dul, claimed his site in Pelican Rapids was serving 6,000 meals a day, 7 days a week. The entire population, children and adults, of Pelican Rapids is less than 2,500. Another network of sites, Empire Cuisine, fraudulently obtained more than $47 million. 2. Ideology blinded Democratic leadership to obvious fraud. This scandal metastasized because the perpetrators claimed to serve a marginalized refugee community. In the modern Democratic Party, that instantly grants immunity from scrutiny. Minnesota officials were accused of racism if they questioned the obviously fake claims. Feeding Our Future advocates figured that out early and used it as a shield, accusing officials of discrimination the moment anyone asked why the numbers didn't add up. 3. The nonprofit industrial complex and the crony network. This scandal metastasized because the perpetrators claimed to serve the state's massive Somali refugee community. In the modern Democratic Party, that instantly grants immunity from scrutiny. Feeding Our Future was a classic middleman operation, receiving huge administrative fees, over $18 million, for sponsoring the fraudulent meal sites. They used this position to solicit direct bribes, often disguised as consulting fees, from the groups they were supposed to be supervising. The criminals then established dozens of shell companies and fake nonprofits purely to enroll, receive federal money, and quickly launder the proceeds. This complex, cozy network is the lifeblood of modern democratic politics. You rely on politically friendly nonprofit groups to provide services and eventually campaign support, creating a self-sustaining system that actively resists external auditing. We see the same pattern everywhere. Oregon was forced into ending Measure 110 drug treatment grants over misuse of funds, and Washington State was slammed for 86 problems against nearly a dozen state agencies for either not complying with federal grant rules or not fully accounting for spending. New York's migrant shelter contracts were criticized for being ripe for abuse. For no one in government pays a price for failure, so the failures never stop. Despite hundreds of millions in stolen money, not a single high-ranking Minnesota official has resigned. In fact, Minnesota Democrats have spent more time downplaying or deflecting the scandal than acknowledging their role in enabling it. Governor Tim Walz, whose administration failed to detect or stop the massive fraud, now talks tough about holding scammers accountable, then immediately pivots to attacking President Donald Trump for calling Somali fraudsters garbage, casting himself as a defender of the Somali community. Walz and his allies act outraged so they can claim the moral high ground. Yet these are the same people who spent the past 6 years branding white Americans as racists and blaming them for a supposed white supremacy culture that conveniently justified the racially selective social justice programs now exposed as vehicles for fraud. This lack of accountability is standard practice. California lost over $20 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims, including to death row inmates. Not a single major political figure suffered consequences. When the government rewards incompetence and punishes no one, incompetence becomes standard operating procedure. 5. Democrats refuse to admit big government fails, so fraud gets denied, minimized, or politically reframed. Democrats treat big government as infallible. If the system fails, it must be because critics are racist, or Republicans are politicizing it, or journalists are overhyping it. It can never be that the programs themselves are ripe for corruption. So the cycle repeats, with bigger budgets and even less accountability. The Feeding Our Future scandal is being sold as a Minnesota embarrassment. It's much bigger than that. It's a warning about what happens when you combine ideological blinders, political patronage, oversized government programs, and zero accountability. Minnesota just got caught. Other states are simply waiting their turn.